What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripe Show. Andrew was on vacation. We're swapping some spots here. I went to Italy for a week or so, and he kept the ball rolling while I was gone. Because at this point, we're like, you know what? When we take vacation, we're just going to take some vacation and actually take a step away, even from the show. It's a healthy thing to do, is what we've realized. It took us 10 years to figure that out, but that's the game plan here. So brought in our good buddy Neil Keefe to pinch hit here. Neil also has a pod, Keefe to the City. Neil, welcome, man. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to talk with you.
Well, this is gonna be good because usually you're on with Andrew, I feel like, right? So you guys
Right.
you have a similar way that you look at the team, and you know, it's realistic. It absolutely is. You call a lot of bullshit on me when I get my glass half full. But then when Nathan Eovaldi left for the Tampa Bay Rays and Texas Rangers and led them to a World Series, I felt completely justified with my opinion. And then Andrew, of all people, at our trade deadline episode, traded for Nathan Eovaldi back to the New York Yankees, which I thought was one of the most hilarious things that's happened on this show, to be honest.
Yeah, when it comes to Nasty Nate, I do this all animosity team every year on Keefe to the City where I pick a player at each position that I despise for reasons, mostly related to the Yankees. And Evaldi's been the starter on that team since he left, to go to Boston and become a hero in the postseason there and
Yeah.
win there, then go to Texas, help them win. When he was with the Yankees, he was a 5 inning pitcher at most, 110 pitches, threw 100 but couldn't strike anyone out. Got hurt. Yeah, he was just they couldn't develop him or fix him the way they thought. But they weren't the only ones. The Dodgers gave up on him. The Marlins gave up on him. So yeah, when I saw that and when I heard about Andrew wanting to bring him back, it gave me some horrible flashbacks. And if he had come here, I'm sure he would pitch a couple starts and then get hurt anyway.
That's the thing, man. When you start looking at the reasons why certain people are, have like invoke an emotion on the Yankees, I feel like a significant part of it is what the Yankees did with that player and how they treated that player, how they used that player, and bringing them into the system and actually having them only go 5 innings or whatnot. Like I think that is also a byproduct of the way that the Yankees have operated in the last 15 years or so. So I think all that hate is not just going towards the player, but they're just the recipient of it because they're in the situation.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't hate Nathan Eovaldi. I hate how the Yankees tried to use him. The same with Sonny Gray, Aaron Hicks. Aaron Hicks didn't force the Yankees to give him a $70 million extension. They didn't force them to believe he was going to be the starting center fielder and healthy every season. So while everyone boos him and gets on him as a person, the player, it's the front office, it's the team that believed in this guy or utilized him wrong, and they've done that so many times. And with Eovaldi, it goes back to that team. Nunez was on that World Series team that ended up beating the Yankees in the playoffs. Steve Pearce was on that team. So guys with the Yankees who either were complete busts or did nothing for them, and they go on to just destroy them, which brings me a lot of fear for this season with Kikuchi in Houston and now Caleb Ferguson in Houston. I don't know how anyone doesn't envision these two teams matching up and Kikuchi throwing a gem because he has horrible numbers, but in the last 2.5 seasons against the Yankees, he has
He's been very good against the Yankees.
They're the one team keeping his numbers respectable. So I do have fear for that. Hopefully we don't get there, but it does seem like that always happens where ex-Yankees play at their best when they face them. And in terms of Kikuchi, he's not an ex-Yankee, but he dominated them enough in Toronto that it's easy to see him doing that again in Houston.
Yeah. Plus, it's just that fear with Houston because we need to, in my bold predictions in the beginning of the season, I did this last year too because it has to come true at some point. Exercise the demons against the Houston Astros in the ALCS. I feel like that's the only path forward for the Yankees in the postseason if they're going to win a World Series. They got to go through Houston. So it is what it is. But this weekend, it was good. It was the first home series that the Yankees have won since the Minnesota Twins back on June 6th, which is crazy because that's 2 months ago when you think about and you look at a calendar and actually realize what's been going on. But we got to the stadium on Saturday, which was awesome. It was good to see you. and your wife as well. So it was hotter than hell. First 5 innings were okay in 205 because you get the shade, but then the sun starts beating down on you. And I think that my shirt, I had I made a bad decision and went with like the cotton poly blend, and I wanted to wear my Meet Me at the Bat shirt just because I love that shirt, but it was just a darker shade. It was like the new uniforms that baseball has brought out. Like sometimes you don't see the sweat because the sweat has just taken over the color of the uniform, and one guy has a darker shirt than the other. That was me on Saturday, and we got some people together. Kemp's birthday was on Sunday, so got his name up on the big board. So that was cool and fun. He thinks Aaron Judge is the one who pulled the strings for that, which is I'll let him believe forever. But yeah, man, it was good to see you. Good to see you on Saturday, and Brittany, and good to see a big W.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was fun to see everyone for the first time in a while. I haven't sat out where we sat in a while. I think since the last time I was at a game with you guys. So I wasn't even thinking like, from the 203 days when I only used to sit out there for years. I wasn't even thinking like, oh, suntan lotion, whatever. And we were waiting to go in the stadium, and we were like under an awning, and just my right arm was out, and I was like feeling it, and I was like, it just hit me. I was like, said to my wife, I was like, did you put suntan lotion on? She's like, no, did you? And I was like, no. And I got inside, and I told Andrew that, and he's like, basically like, you're a fucking idiot. And,
Yeah.
But I haven't felt any effects yet, so I think maybe I made it through. We were kind of like right at the row of the overhang, so hopefully I was able to avoid it.
Yeah, man. But yeah, again, first series win, which, you think about that, it's crazy. It's a home series win. Obviously they've won a couple more series, not a lot, but they've won a couple more. They've split some series, but this is the first series win. And, we're going to go through the positives and negatives of the series as we normally do. But they did it in walk-off fashion after a pretty long rain delay on Sunday. So it had some extra drama to it. For a team that Toronto, you look at what Toronto did at the deadline. They traded pretty much everybody that wasn't controlled. If there was a contract coming up this year, or I think even a couple of guys that were controlled into the following year, they sold off. They got a ton of prospects. We'll see how that works with them. They have a big year coming up next year, obviously with some of those big names that are going to be up for a contract soon, and they're going to have to make a decision whether they're either trading in the offseason, trading in the middle of the season for some prospects and rentals, but they're going to have some big decisions coming up. But it's a different team than what we saw, earlier in the year. And but yeah, good. I think it was a good win. There were some really good positives. There were some really good things that we saw from this win. But just general thoughts coming out of the first series win at home since June 6th.
Yeah, it was an important series win because Baltimore was winning a series against Cleveland. So to keep pace with them, to beat Toronto, I mean, Toronto has, essentially given up. So traded away major league pieces for future pieces, kind of doing auditions here the final 2 months of the season. So you want to win a home series against them because they're a shell of what they were to begin the season. With Stroman going on Friday night, it was kind of expected that he'd put a ton of guys on. You just hope that he's able to escape those jams. He wasn't. Once again, he's been pretty bad for a while. Saturday, the offense was there. Sunday, similar story. A few scares along the way, but that's a team that if you are being true to yourself about being a contender in the final 2 months of the season, that's a team that you have to beat, at least win the series against, especially at home.
Yep. All right, before we get into the positives and the negatives, I want to tell you guys about Raycon. Raycon's a sponsor of the show. We appreciate them, and they have some very good products. Their everyday earbuds are even better than they have been, and you expect them with the name to not be as good as some of the bigger names, but they are. They're damn good, and I'm extremely happy that they're part of our show because I gave the Raycon buds to Bevan for Christmas. She absolutely loves them. And now they've upgraded their everyday earbuds. So you can get active ergonomic design, multi-point connectivity that lets you pair to 2 devices at once, which is huge. And then active noise cancellation. They have them in a whole bunch of colors. I got Bevan the lavender purple, which she absolutely loves. She wears them every single time she goes out to run. And in the past, she's had buds where she just gives up on them, goes to the corded buds, and she's not looked back since getting the Raycon. They stay in her ear. They have multiple options to fit your ear if you have the ear hole of someone that doesn't fit well. That's Bevan. She does not, for some reason, it does not fit, but these absolutely do. Some of the best things that they have going on: 32-hour battery life, which is massive. If you forget to charge them, you're still good. But if you forget to charge them, also, they have a new quick charge function. 10 minutes of charging yields 90 minutes of battery, that's massive. That gets you through a run and a good workout. Ergonomic design, as I was talking about, to comfortably fit the widest range of ears. Optimized gel tips for cozy custom fit, and the new active noise cancellation, which is huge. So you don't have to hear all that background noise. You can really isolate the stuff that's coming into your ears. So big fan of these. Bevan absolutely loves them. Again, she uses them every day. So I don't know what you guys are waiting for. You definitely got to go check out the Raycons. There's truly no better time. Their upgraded model will blow you away. You're going to ask yourself, why didn't you check them out sooner? Raycon also offers a 30-day happiness guarantee. So don't wait. Get in there now. Buy the Raycons. Go to buyraycon.com/Bronx today to get 15% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right. You'll get 15% and free shipping at buyraycon.com/Bronx. buyraycon.com/Bronx. All right, let's start with some positives, because that's what I like to do. We like to start with the ups, sprinkle in some downs. But this is one that I'm excited to talk with you about, because I know you root for these guys as much as anybody. You want to see them do well, but at the same time, you're going to look at what they're doing in real time, what is actually happening. And there's a conversation to be had, I think, about the lineup that we'll get into when we start talking about the Judge walks, because I think what happened this weekend, and then even going back to the Mets series, is eye-opening and definitely concerning with what needs to happen. But it really levels up the importance of that number 1 and that number 4 spot, in my opinion, when the strategy is to walk Aaron Judge. But I think a guy going down the stretch, if he can continue this streak, and someone who is very good, first positive here is Anthony Volpe. Since the All-Star break, 359 average, 1.026 OPS, 4 doubles, 5 home runs. He's knocked in 12 runs, 1 walk, which you'd like to see a little bit higher, but the guy is controlling the strike zone better than he had earlier in the year, and 14 Ks. Had a good series, 3 for 4 on Friday, Saturday, 2 for 4, Sunday, 1 for 5, and a couple home runs, drove in some big runs. So number 1, Anthony Volpe. And again, he's been playing good defense. There was a tough play up the middle that was off of Rodon's glove that he came up, scoop, grab, threw over, and made the play. But what have you been seeing from Volpe since the second half began?
So with Volpe, if you go back to opening day, that first series against Houston, the first series against Arizona right after that, he looked like a completely different player. He looked like the superstar potential that we were promised, that we thought we were getting. I was blown away by his approach, his discipline, the way he was just commanding the box. He wasn't swinging, he wasn't free swinging, he wasn't trying to just put the ball in play. It was a completely different hitter. Then for the rest of the season until the All-Star break, he was just the guy he was last year, who would swing at every pitch, every once in a while run into one, but not even at the rate he was last year. Mostly pop balls up to the left side of the infield, mostly hit weak balls to shortstop, not walk. And then it turned back over these last 2 weeks to the guy he was on opening day for that first week. I have no idea what happened from opening day through the Arizona series to what went on to the All-Star break and what's going on since. He claims he hasn't changed his approach since the All-Star break, which I find very hard to believe, because he looks like a different hitter. Now, the issue is what you mentioned when you were running through his stats, the 1 walk, which is very troublesome, because over this time since the break, he's hitting 359, but his on base is 369. So it's tied completely to his average and the balls he hits in play. He's not a guy that you can necessarily bat leadoff in that sense, because you're just hoping that he runs into, good fortune and good luck putting the ball in play for an extended period of time, hitting before Soto and Judge. Otherwise, he's just going to become that guy again who pops up or grounds out on the first pitch and has these weak at-bats. So I like what he's done. Obviously, how can you not? But he still has a long way to go to becoming a stable force at the top of the order. I'd leave him at the bottom and let him do his thing and try to figure it out. I mean, he's 1,000 plate appearances into his career. You would think that he would be a little further advanced maybe than he is, but it is what it is at this point. Just let him hit at the bottom of the order. Stop trying to force him to the top of the order until he figures out how to walk, if he ever does.
That is a huge part, like the plate discipline, being able to, and plate discipline, you can look at in two different ways. You're right. The on base percentage can speak to that big time. He's making a lot of contact right now. It's the problem is that he does go into streaks, and when he's not making contact is an issue because he's not walking at that point. And you have guys like Austin Wells, for instance, who we'll touch on in a second. Even when he was not going right and he was sub Mendoza line, the guy still was taking walks. He was still able to get on base, and that's a huge piece of becoming that consistent hitter. If you can take walks, Soto is like the absolute pinnacle of this, right? Even when he's not on, he's taking walks. The guy has the best control of the strike zone in Major League Baseball, and so Volpe. Not to that level. I don't think it's surprising. I think that today, unless you're just like an absolute generational talent, which I hate that term, it's used way too much, but becoming consistent in today's baseball, I think is a lot harder than it has been in the past. But for Volpe, you're right. He's got to stay within himself. And I don't know if the approach has changed. It's a matter of executing the approach. I think that's one of the biggest things. So maybe he's speaking to that. Early in the season, he was executing the approach for the first little bit when he was into the leadoff spot. He looked good, but then trailed off, was not having good at bats, and was not being a positive contributor to the Yankees in front of Soto and Judge. And to your point, one of the things that I love that happened finally on Sunday, and since the addition of Jazz Chisholm, we have two guys now that can cause havoc on the base path. Like we can actually use athletic ability on the base path for stealing bags, for taking extra bags, for forcing pitchers to think about the runners on. When Volpe's popping around and bouncing around out there, I like it. I think that gives him some type of advantage. At least he's a smart base runner. He's got good instincts out there. And when we saw a double steal yesterday, I had a huge grin on my face because seeing those guys towards the bottom of the lineup allows them to do that. Right. If Volpe's in the leadoff spot, if Jazz Chisholm ever were to be in the leadoff spot, those guys get neutered on the base path, rightfully so, because you need Soto and you need Judge to hit. If they are down in the 6, 7, 8, 9 spot, wherever, somewhere down there, they have the ability to act like a second leadoff guy and actually run. Like I think at that point, it's a Yankees decision if they push them to run, but they have the ability to run. There's really not a barrier for them to stop the action on the base path, which I think, especially coming into the end of the season and into the playoffs, is going to be massive. The Yankees are going to have to put pressure from the bottom of the lineup on the pitchers, and running is a really good way to do that.
I agree. And in terms of Volpe, where he's at now, the only way I want him hitting leadoff is if the choice is between Volpe, Torres, and Verdugo, because those two don't belong batting leadoff. The issue is the Yankees don't have a leadoff hitter because no one gets on base at the clip that Soto and Judge do outside of Austin Wells these last couple months. So to me, Soto should be batting leadoff with Judge behind him. Why do you want to give the most at bats over, an elongated period of time to Alex Verdugo, who's absolute garbage, who has an on base below 300, or Gleyber, who just, he has these little 5-day runs where people think he's going to figure it out and he never does. Those two guys should never be, they shouldn't be in the lineup, period, but to have them hitting first is ridiculous. So the only way I'd want Volpe up there is if the choice is between him and these other two, but it should be Soto up there. And to your point about the running, that's nice to have. It's nice that they don't have Volpe getting on first and then he can't run and they're just waiting for that 2-run, 3-run home run. They're always playing station to station. They're an old, unathletic team for the most part and not full of speedsters. So to have Volpe, who's not that fast, but he has good base running instincts, and Jazz, who's extremely fast, we kind of saw that on Sunday and what it could lead to, and it helped them win the game. Without that double steal, they may not end up winning.
Okay, they're not old at this point. They've gotten a hell of a lot younger, even in the last month. When you look at the addition of Jazz Chisholm, and you have now
the team on paper,
a young catcher,
what they were going to have is old.
Yes, okay, that's fair. But they've gotten a lot more athletic and a lot. They have gotten younger in the last month with some of the additions and some of the guys. And I'm going to go to the next positive. We actually have 4 in here, so I'm going to work them in some capacity to the 3. But this is a guy that is becoming more of an X factor every single day, in my opinion, because if you have a healthy DJ LeMahieu, and I said this, I don't know, last episode or the 2 before, if he's hitting at, 70% of what we would have expected from him, he's the best right-handed batter that you can slot into that leadoff spot on the team at this point. He's a guy that can control the strike zone. One of the things that gets me excited is I trust LeMahieu and what he talks. I feel like he's probably his biggest critic, but he's also, he won't give you some bullshit. He gives company lines, but one of the things that he says is that he deemed himself and talked about it, that he's feeling much better at the plate. And I believe him, because what I'm seeing is over the last 3 games, and I know he had that when he hit that home run, if you go back to there, like, you're seeing better at bats. And he hasn't been able to put it together for an extended period of time, but you're definitely seeing more of that DJ LeMahieu who possibly could be a very solid contributor. And if DJ LeMahieu is a guy that can get the ball off the ground a little bit more often, hit the line drive, spray the field, have good at bats, plopping him in that leadoff spot now changes the complete dynamic of this lineup. A right-handed bat in front of Soto and Judge that can make contact. Even yesterday, I know he had the 10th inning single when they put 5. The Blue Jays had 5 infielders, and he still snuck a hard ground ball up through the middle. That was at 101.4 exit velo. The 8th inning lineout, 101.5. 6th inning, 95.5. So he's making good contact. You are seeing better at bats. He's telling us that he feels better, and there can't be a more frustrated guy out there. But this is a dude that, for me, is the most important part of the lineup coming back. If there's one person to like show themselves again over, if it's him, if it's Gleyber, if it's Verdugo, if it's any of these guys that have been struggling, DJ LeMahieu by far is the most important one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what we've seen out of DJ the last few days is the DJ of old, driving the ball the other way, driving the ball up the middle, hitting the ball in the air, crazy expected batting averages, crazy exit velocity. That's who you think he's going to be. Now, he obviously missed a huge portion of the season with a foot fracture. Maybe it's finally feeling better, feeling right. Maybe this is a small sample size anomaly and he's just going to go back to hitting the ball on the ground every time. I'm not sure. But like you said, he is the most important piece because he's owed almost $40 million. He's not going anywhere. They're not going to release him. They're going to keep giving him opportunities. Those opportunities should be more often than they have been. After a career high day against Philly, a day off, and then he only plays one of the next 3 games is just ridiculous.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So him becoming DJ LeMahieu of old again allows them to sit Gleyber. It allows them to have, better stability within the infield, not having to worry about catering to Gleyber and how he feels and how he's doing mentally and physically and at the plate. DJ becoming his old self is so key to this team just taking that next step and becoming a much deeper lineup than they already are at this point. I've always been a DJ guy. I was all for the extension. I was all for giving him $90 million, 6 years, whatever. He earned that. It's sad to see what he's become over the last few months, but I'm as happy as anyone to see that maybe, just maybe, he's not completely washed and done yet.
Yeah. And last year, if you look at the second half of the season, he started to turn it on, and we're like, okay, well, he's not the batting champion DJ LeMahieu that he has been in the past, but he doesn't need to be that guy. He doesn't. He needs to be, making solid contact, working the count. And that's like just a guy that can go up there and work a count, like a professional hitter in that one spot is so very important. And that kind of leads to this next positive. I'm gonna wrap Wells into this, but I want to talk about Aaron Judge again. I feel like we need to talk about him every single episode. The guy is absolutely, putting together one of the best seasons I've seen, one of the most dominant hitter seasons that I've seen in a very long time, if not ever. He's putting up massive numbers and still, but he's getting walked at a much higher clip than even he was when he broke Maris's record. But 41 home runs, 103 RBIs. His batting average now is up to 322, which is 3rd in the American League. Like, this guy's going to contend. I don't even know who's above him. Logan, who's above him on the American League? But are we approaching triple crown watch? 455 on base percentage, 701 slugging, a ridiculous 1.156 OPS. The guy he's 7.7 FWAR, which is first. He's insane. And at all costs, the Yankees need to figure out how to protect this man and allow the bat to be used in his hand. Because now we're seeing when Carlos Mendoza started doing this with the Mets in the last series, walking him, not pitching to Judge. We saw Schneider do it now with Toronto as well. They're taking the bat out of his hands. They're walking him. 2 outs, no one's pitching to him. They're not doing it. If there's a base open, they're walking him. Soto had some comments at the end of the game yesterday, talking about how it makes him mad, but he understands the strategy. Like this is what happens. Aaron Judge is hitting like no one else. So the best route forward to win a game is to not pitch to Aaron Judge. Like that's a strategy that is accurate. So what the Yankees need to do, and I know they've been working on what the solution can be in that cleanup spot, is to solidify the guys behind him. But also for me, we need to see more production out of that one spot. It's a huge piece because if you have the leadoff batter getting on, there's a much bigger second guess if you have LeMahieu and you have Juan Soto on in front of him. Now you're forcing the opposing manager to make a real decision and load the bases or put another runner on after you got 2 guys on. So I think that everybody's been focused on what that cleanup spot's doing, but that leadoff spot, in my opinion, is just as important for protecting Aaron Judge.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's tough to say that this is going to continue into October because yesterday they moved Soto from first to second into scoring position to walk Judge to bring up Wells. Are you really going to put a runner into scoring position, a second runner on the threat of a 3-run home run at the plate in the postseason? I find that hard to believe. It's one thing for the Mets to do it in late July and the Blue Jays, whose season's over, to do it in early August. I don't think it continues into October. That being said, Wells has been awesome since not like a week, not a month. If you go back to April 24th, he has an 833 OPS. That's almost the entire season. And that first month, actually the first couple of months until Trevino got hurt, he was playing half the time at most. So this guy's been really good and really productive for nearly the entire season. He fits nicely into that spot, putting a left-handed bat between Judge and Stanton, which is, Boone's dream. He would never let Judge, right, Sanchez, Stanton hit back-to-back, even when the 3 of them were, even when Sanchez was still, productive player. So they're going to have to put someone there. Wells fits in there nicely. This goes back to what we said earlier about Soto batting leadoff. If you're batting Soto leadoff and he's walking to start the game, you're not walking Judge right after him to put 2 on with no outs. There's going to be more opportunities for that. I just feel like they have to get rid of the idea that they have a leadoff guy on this team. They don't. They don't have anybody who gets on base consistently. They don't have anybody who can walk consistently. They have to just figure it out. And this is a typical Boone where he's scared of screwing up this whatever magic Soto and Judge have, which is just they're awesome players. And they're going to hit whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever spot they are in the order. But he doesn't want to break up what's been going well. He needs to. Soto needs to hit first. Stop trying to force someone in there because it's just not working, and it's screwing things up to the point that now Judge, every 8 at-bats, 8 plate appearances, he gets to swing. That has to stop.
But it's not going to stop. It's
not
going to stop.
But if you bat Soto leadoff, it gives you an opportunity, at least in the first inning. Soto gets on the first inning, they're not walking Judge. That's not happening. You're not doing that in the first inning of, either a 0-0 game or the opponent scored in the top half of the first. They're just not going to do that. I don't envision that. That would be idiotic. Maybe, there's a lot of really dumb managers in the league, but that would take away at least that opportunity. Because when you have Gleyber or Verdugo batting first, they get out. Now Soto walks. Okay, we can walk Judge here because there's already one out. Maybe it will get Wells to bang into one. But you're going to put 2 guys on with no outs to start a game if Soto gets on? I don't see that.
Judge is up there. I forget what the stat was, but the most first inning home runs. He's approaching the Yankee list or the all-time list. I forget which one it was. It's one or both. So the guy's been uber productive in the first inning. Look, the more this goes on tape and is working, the more I think we're going to continue to see it. I think it's going to be a momentum thing. I think every sport is a copycat league, every single one. If they see it work and they put pressure on Austin Wells to be able to do the thing, they're going to continue to do it. And to your point in the playoffs, I could absolutely see that happening, especially when you have better pitching that's going to navigate that 4, 5, and 6 over the first 2 guys and take their chances with getting a ground ball or, a big strikeout. But that's the thing, protection. Austin Wells, who has been fantastic. He was one of the four on here for the series. He was 5 for 12 with a couple walks, 3 Ks, but the guy's been productive, man. And right after what we're seeing for the walks, I'm going to go through the intentional walks. On Saturday, after the intentional walk, Wells single to right field. Okay, bam. That it didn't work, right? You're now putting another guy on in that is behind Judge. The first intentional walk on Sunday, Wells walked. He struck out on the next one, and then after the third one, Wells flew out to right field. So the more and more Wells can prove that he is that productive hitter behind Aaron Judge, that's where I think things can stop. Stanton as well in that 5 spot, but I do think we're going to see it more often. And Toronto's got nothing to lose, and they're still doing it. You said it's a bad team, but they have a bad team with nothing to lose, and they're still not pitching to Judge in that spot.
Well, I think Schneider, he's going to lose his job, so he wants to try to rack up as many wins as possible. I also don't care that they're walking him. Like, fine, put more guys on base because, like you said, Wells singled the other day. At some point, he's going to run into one during this, or he's going to walk, or Stanton's going to run into one. So putting more guys on base, you're just playing with fire. Eventually, you're going to get burnt, and I have no problem. You want to take Soto from first and push him to second and put Judge on, or you want Soto on second and then you want to put Judge on first and put 2 guys on. Keep doing it. Give me more base runners. I don't care how Judge gets on. Keep walking him. That's fine. He will get to swing the bats as opportunities, and he does do damage when he does. So, if they want to pitch to him, that's awesome. If they want to put him on, that's awesome. It's a win-win situation. It's not like we have Rizzo as his protection, popping up the first pitch he's going to see or something. Wells has been great. Stanton is always a threat. Jazz is a threat. So the lineup, like what I mentioned earlier about them being old, and I was referencing like the start of the season when you had LeMahieu in there, or you had the idea of LeMahieu in there, and Rizzo and Trevino and these much older guys. Yeah, they've gotten a lot younger. They've gotten a lot better. So I have no problem. Keep walking Judge, and the Yankees keep winning. So it's they're 7-1 since the break, so it's not doing too much harm to them.
Yeah,
or not 7-1 since the break, but 7-1 rather since Saturday night in Boston.
All right, let's talk about some of the negatives that came from the series, and obviously this is one we've kind of buried the lead on what the biggest story was over the weekend, really, and it was Friday night. Gleyber Torres, where he hits. Dude smokes a line drive off the left field wall, stares at it for 10 minutes, does a slow walk towards first base, and then realizes that the ball is off the wall and starts like a gentle trot into first base. Immediately looks over to the dugout like, oh shit, did anybody else see that? Did people see what just happened there? And ends up on first base. Absolutely, you're running out of the box hard. You're on second base. And cost the Yankees a run because he was waved around third later in the inning. And, people aren't talking about this as much as they need to, in my opinion. But when you're running around third and you're 3/4 of the way home and you're scared that the ball's going to hit you in the head or the bag, and you're like cringing, like it's going to hit you, that one slows you down. That it was a bad path to home. The base running was a bad path to home. Was it a send that should have happened? I don't really hate the send a ton, to be honest, because there were 2 outs. If he was running hard the whole time, if he took the right path, he probably would have scored, or at least it would have been much closer, but he didn't. And he wasn't on second base where he would have scored very easily. And then Boone, he went out to play second base. Seems like he just went out quickly. It would have been a tough turnaround for Cabrera to get out there. Then in front of everybody, Boone's on the top step. They have a conversation. He pulls him. You see the whole thing, Gleyber, pleading his case with his palms up, the whole deal. And he gets pulled from the game. So that was a huge story, obviously throughout the weekend. Let me hear your thoughts about it first of all, before you talk about what happened the rest of the weekend with Gleyber.
Yeah. So Gleyber is easily the most despised Yankee on this current roster, I think universally among all Yankees fans. There should be no one that's defending this guy, supporting this guy. If you like Gleyber Torres, then you don't like the Yankees because he's detrimental to their success at the plate, in the field, on the bases. Everything about him is just, he's a losing player. And he can never just do something positive. He always has to negate it in some way. You look at the series in Boston on Sunday Night Baseball where he gets the big single, the bases low in the first inning, but then tries to run to second on the same play and gets thrown out. The other night he destroys a ball, hardest hit ball he's had all season, but he watches it and he ends up with a single. Like he can't just complete the positive impact he has in a game. He always has to do something to destroy it. Now, with the whole idea of him getting benched, he deserved to be. He has deserved to be pulled from games, benched countless times as a Yankee, but he's always been in Boone's corner. He's always been catered to, whether it was taking him off a short, screwing up. They give LeMahieu an extension. They end up having to take LeMahieu off of second in 2021 and move Torres to second, move Urshela to short to cater to Torres. They cater to Torres when they get Jazz. Hey, Jazz, you've never played third? Well, you're playing third because we're not about to move Gleyber off second. He gets everything given to him. Everything is tailor-made for him to have success, and he still doesn't. With the benching, Boone, it wasn't that initially, yes, and everyone thought that he had just gone out to second quickly and Boone couldn't have pulled him in time. But then the next day, Boone said he didn't want to make theater of the event. That's exactly what you do. How do you think you're getting through to Gleyber Torres when you secretly pull him from the game to the point that he doesn't even know he was pulled because he has to go over and ask you in the dugout? You didn't make theater of it by pulling him in the field. You let him go out and play the field an extra inning. Then you say he can go back in the next day and you're not going to answer questions about it. So do you think he's learning any accountability, any responsibility, any lessons? He's not. You can't take him out of the game, then say he's going to play tomorrow, and then tell the media you're not going to talk about it. How is he learning anything from that example? And for Boone to say that this was an isolated incident, it's never going to happen again, are you nuts? I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in the next 3 days against the Angels. That's the type of player Gleyber is. And if you look at the stuff he's done recently just in the field, I mean, he dropped 2 double play transfers in Philly. One of them almost cost them the game. He booted another ball for his 14th error, leads all major league second basemen. What does he do that's positive? And to continue to be given everyday playing time, he bats leadoff after he was pulled from a game 2 days prior. There's nothing this guy can do. He survived every trade deadline as a Yankee to the point now that's it. He's got 2 months left as a Yankee, and then he'll walk. They'll get nothing in return for him. I can't believe that we're still talking about Gleyber Torres. I can't believe that he's still a Yankee here in August of 2024. He's done enough stuff to pull himself out of the lineup, if not pull himself off this team, and he's still there, still playing, still batting leadoff, still hitting 230, still having a 300 on base, and he'll have 3 good games in a row that'll buy him another 2 months. This happens every single year with the same guy, and we're still talking about it. Whatever this is, year 7 of him being on the team.
So I know Boone mentioned that he didn't want to make theater of it, but I mean, by pulling him in the middle, I also heard him say that it wasn't. It was more about Cabrera. I don't listen to a lot of the things that Boone says because I think he gives a bunch of lip service. Yeah, the fact that he didn't talk about it to the media, I think, is a little disingenuous in the fact that he owes them a little bit more in what the thinking was. This is the first guy who's been pulled, and benched in the middle of a game in a very long time for Boone. I don't even remember him doing it. I don't think he has. There have been multiple guys. I think some of the fan reaction to this, I don't think there's anybody that I agree. I don't think there's anybody that's pushing back against the benching of Gleyber from Friday night. But what I am seeing, and I think there's some justification for, is that there are other guys that have deserved this same type of thing. Verdugo has reserved it 100%. You're seeing these guys that Verdugo has dogged, plenty of plays as well that goes on.
He is a dog, Scott.
He's a dog. That's right. He's a dog. But you see these guys that are putting in the less than 100%, and the accountability just isn't there. At least for Boone, this was big accountability. For Boone, this was big accountability. And it ended up being theater anyway. It did, because top step, Gleyber sitting there with the palms up and the whole deal, he got pulled. And I think that where the accountability comes from him, it's not necessarily just from Aaron Boone, but it's from the wave of people talking about exactly what this is. The guy does take plays off. The guy's mental focus is 1,000% in question. Is his talent in question? No, I believe he has talent. I believe if this guy committed himself to his craft even more so and was able to be able to lock in and take advantage of that talent, we would see a different player. And he's done that in spurts, like you said. but he just doesn't know how to do it consistently every day. And he's got mental lapses that are just part of his game at this point, and it's unfortunate, but it is there. I think one of the biggest things for him is, and the Yankees, is now that, again, if LeMahieu can prove that he's doing this a little bit more, I think Saturday would have been a great day for LeMahieu to have been in that lineup, for Gleyber to sat another day. You have a right-handed bat. DJ's coming off of he didn't play Friday, but you have him coming off of a 6 RBI, biggest production, feeling good. Why not throw him in the leadoff spot? Who cares? Just see what happens. If you're throwing Gleyber in there, throw the hotter hitter in there. You're benching him for an old man. Like, that also sends a message if you're doing such a thing. But I think he's a huge key into seeing less of Gleyber Torres. Otherwise, not a ton of options, because Jazz is playing third. Thankfully, that guy will do whatever he wants to, whatever is needed to win in the Bronx. Like, the guy's the ultimate team player coming over. It's a breath of fresh air. I love Jazz Chisholm for that. His rope has gotten infinitely longer for any struggles that come up because of his attitude. And when you're playing in New York, like, I feel like 75% of what you do, the accountability you hold within yourself and talk about, is massive, because you're going to get a lot more room to make mistakes. And you need that room, because that guys are going to make mistakes. Guys are going to have, long stretches of struggling. And if you're accountable and saying the right things and showing the right things, then you're going to have some leeway with the fans. But Gleyber has not afforded that, because he's not shown that. The me guy says, I'm a second baseman. Like you said, 14 errors, most in baseball. Like, you're not a second baseman either.
Yeah, he thinks he's like a Gold Glove winner and that he has that to fall back on. But like you said with Boone about not saying it to the media, like, I hate when managers think that they don't have to give an explanation for something, or this is between me and the player. Like, you exist as the manager of the Yankees because fans exist. Without no fans, there's no sense for a media to be between the players and the fans. Without no media, no one cares about your sport. You're not the manager of the Yankees. You're doing something else with your life. So yes, you owe it to the fans to tell us exactly what your thought process was in benching Gleyber Torres, because the whole reason you exist again as manager of the New York Yankees and get to make millions of dollars watching baseball from the dugout every day is because of fans. So I hate when he tries to say, oh, I'm going to leave it at that, I'm not going to answer another question. Like, you need to answer as many questions are going to be asked of you at that moment about that topic. So that's just ridiculous for him to say. And with Verdugo and the other guys on the team, yeah, there's other guys who have deserved to be sat and they don't run hard to first. That seems to be like a trend with the Yankees under Boone, is that, they don't run hard. I remember Jeter said back in the day, like, it's not hard to run hard to first base. Like, it's the easiest thing you could do as a baseball player is just run hard to first base and make the optics, like, even if, there's a 1 in 100 chance that the guy's going to boot it or throw it away, he might. And then you don't have any, if you run hard to first every play, no one's ever going to say anything bad for you. But if you leave the door open for even 1 second, like, look at a player like Volpe, who always is running hard. And we know that because his helmet doesn't fit. So he has this illusion that he's running even faster than he is. But he had that one, play on 4th of July weekend where he was running home and he stopped running, and his run would have counted, and he had to hear about it for a week. So you could run hard all season long, and if you don't do it once, you're going to get called out for it. So just do it every time. It's the easiest thing these guys will have to do on the field, is just run hard to first. And Gleyber, among the others, they just don't seem to want to do it. And I don't want to hear like, oh, this guy's been nursing a calf or a groin injury or something. Like, no, then he shouldn't be out there. If he has to loaf it to first, then he shouldn't be out there.
Well, even if you are doing that, and that's your thing, you're running it to the best of your ability, at least there's a known quantity there. Like, you understand that guy's nursing something. And like Stanton, we all know his running hard to first base is what it is. It's him running at the regulated pace that is deemed okay, whatever that is. But that's him. Like, we understand that there's nothing stopping Gleyber Torres from running hard to first base. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if it lights a fire, or like you think he's just going to continually go back to.
He'll just continue to bat leadoff right through game 1 of the postseason.
All right, so let's flip it on the other side and talk about Stroman. That's if we're looking at negatives, obviously Friday night, Stroman, who lets a lot of guys on base. You said it earlier in the show. That Stroman, he gives up hits. There's traffic on the base path with him, but you hope that he can get out of it. You hope that he can lock in on the situations and take advantage of it. He's been missing a lot of spots. So first of all, Friday night, 2 2/3, 8 hits, 7 earned runs. And I know there were runners on that scored, one walk, 3 Ks on Friday. It's not good enough. It's not, especially with him, you know, coming in and potentially having a rotation spot in the playoffs, a guy that they're depending on as that third guy through the rotation. I was looking at last year and had Logan pull some numbers from the second half. Last year in 6 starts of 2023, the second half, 1-3, 8.63 ERA. I know he was nursing something last year as well, but you saw him fall off at the end of the season. He's another year older, which, you got to look at. 2022 and 2021, both 14 starts, ended the season well, 2.7 ERA in 22, and in 21, 3.36 ERA. So it's not like he hasn't had second halves where he's had success. He has. He's finished seasons completely, which is a good thing to look back on. He's got to do it. He's over the heart of the plate too damn much. Like, that's the biggest thing for me. This is a guy that cannot live in the middle of the plate. When I'm talking about Luis Gil and I'm talking about Marcus Stroman, I think they're two very different players in the sense that Luis Gil can live in the middle of the plate when he trusts his stuff because it's that good. Marcus Stroman doesn't have that stuff. Marcus Stroman needs to live on the edges of the plate, needs to use deception. He needs, he's 8 pitches. He needs to use all of those 8 pitches to the best of his ability and keep guys off balance. And when he's in the heart of the plate, the stuff is just not good enough to put guys away. So Marcus Stroman is the number one negative for me after Gleyber's mishap.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to win games when Stroman pitches the rest of the way because he just continues to trend in the wrong direction. He's gone 6 innings. He has 1 quality start since Memorial Day. It was a long time ago at this point. He consistently is pulled in, the 4th inning, can't get through the 5th. So he's just not giving them a lot of length. And when he's in the game, he's giving up a lot of runs. He's, has put an average of 2 runners on base over the last 6 weeks of his starts per inning. And this is even crazier. Since the end of June, opponents have 1,000 OPS against him average. So, Judge, Soto, and Ohtani are above 1,000. Devers is right below it. So basically every batter that faces Stroman is Rafael Devers at this point. And like you said, he has to live on the black. He has to have perfect pitches. He can't miss middle. He can't miss anywhere because the velocity is not there, and it just gets cranked when he does. The scary thing is that, well, I think he'll be one of those guys that isn't on the postseason roster because you can't start him, and things would have to go horribly wrong for him to come in long relief. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was just in the dugout but not actually on the roster. He's under contract next year, and if he gets to 140 innings next year, I believe, which he's at right now this year, it's not very hard for him to get to, then he gets an $18 million option kicked in for the following year. So we could be watching Marcus Stroman for 2 more years. And if this is what he is now, when he has the worst hits per 9 of his career, the worst home runs per 9 of his career, the worst strikeout to walk ratio of his career, what's he going to be 2 years from now? It's not getting any better. He's not going to find velocity within the next 2 years. So he's really bad right now, and it's scary to think that he's part of this rotation next year and possibly even the year after that too.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see. Hopefully, again, I think a lot of this is mechanical. Is him being able to finish his pitches, to execute the location that they need to. He's a veteran guy, so I'm leaning on that. Him being able to figure it out. But you're right. We'll see what happens as the season goes on with him. Last thing I wanted to touch on, and really, I think Sunday makes this number a lot more lopsided. But 7 for 26 runners in scoring position on the series, with again against a pitching staff that should not be shutting you down as much as they did. 30 guys left on base. Friday they were 2 for 7, 7 runners left on base. Saturday 3 for 8, 9 runners left on base. I'll take both of those. Sunday is 2 for 11, 14 runners on base. They had bases loaded a couple times where they couldn't convert, and then obviously converted at the end there with LeMahieu. But on the season, 266 average, and for this series, 270. So right above where they've been. But again, they need to be executing. And to me, it's all about also what happens after Soto, what happens after Judge, because that's where the majority of these runners are coming on at the top of the order. They need to execute.
Yeah, when you look at the Yankees, for a week or 2 ago, we were just worried about them collapsing to the point that they weren't going to make the playoffs, which has been the case the last 2 years. But once now that they've stabilized that and they're going to make the playoffs again, the same fear that it is every year is there. It's that, will this team hit in the postseason? That's all that matters. It doesn't matter who starts, who's in the bullpen. It always comes down to the offense with these Yankees and this group and this core going back the last 7 years. So when you see these games where they're struggling against guys on the Blue Jays who either just called up or aren't very good or part of the reason the Blue Jays suck this season, and you think about the fact that come October, you only see elite starters. You only see the top relievers. And then you only see the elite starters being used as relievers. So there are no breaks. Very rarely do you see some, slobbish number 4, number 5 guy pitching in long relief in a postseason. It's usually elite starter.
The game's out of hand at that point.
Reliever. Right. So the problem is, will the team hit in the postseason? And we don't know. Like, we know that Soto will hit in the postseason because when he was in the postseason with Washington, he was insane. We don't know that Judge will, because 2 years ago he had 62 home runs and then went 1 for 16 against Houston. Like, Volpe's never been there. We have no idea. Jazz was there for 20 minutes last year when the Marlins, made that first round and were swept in 2 games. Stanton, if he's healthy, he's been really good for them in the postseason. Gleyber was good when the ball was juiced. We don't know what he's going to be at this point. Rizzo, who even knows if he'll come back. LeMahieu's always been great, but this isn't the LeMahieu that was carrying the Yankees 4 and 5 years ago. So there's a lot of question marks. Like, this offense is good enough to beat the crap out of bad pitching during the regular season. And they're going to clean up this month against all these horrible teams. But come October, when you're only seeing Houston and you're only seeing Baltimore, and even Seattle gets there, like, they have great pitching, it's going to be tough. And no one can predict what's going to happen with that. And that's their entire season comes down to, will the bats be there for a 1 month period? That's what the entirety of every Yankee season under Aaron Boone and even right before him has come down to. Can they hit in the playoffs? And no one knows for sure if they can or can't.
Situational hitting. Yeah. I've said it 1,000 times on the show, even in the past when we've seen the pitching staff not be where we want the pitching staff to be. It's never been the pitching staff is the reason why the Yankees have struggled in the postseason over the last 7 years. Like you mentioned, it's always been the situational hitting. It's been the guys being able to effectively go after the top line starting pitching that you're seeing. And again, like, I'll go back to LeMahieu. That's why I think LeMahieu is such an important cog piece of this. And I know it's difficult to rely on a guy that's over 35 at this point, but in the past, like you mentioned, the extension that they gave him, I've always thought that if healthy, DJ LeMahieu can play into his later 30s because of the way that he hits, the way that he approaches, the way that he's so mechanically sound as a hitter. It's the type of guy that can translate to continuing to hit as he ages. And the foot injuries, and how many freaking balls have been fouled off of legs and feet this year? I feel like at like an insane clip, we're seeing it. Not just for the Yankees, but every game I'm turning on, like, there's a guy fouling off a ball that's missing the shin guard. It's happening at a crazy pace. But ever since the injury to his foot, and I know his foot's taken a whole bunch of beating over the last 2 years, he just hasn't been that guy. But he is such an important cog to how they're going to hit in the postseason. If he can elevate himself and be this guy that gives them consistent at bats into when the playoffs start, you got to really look at him in that leadoff spot, because he's going to give you a good at bat. He's going to give you a professional at bat come playoff time. And again, that sets them up for obviously more success there.
And when you look at Sunday's game, when he came up in the extra innings and they just needed the ball put in play, he was the guy you wanted up in that spot. Now, a lot of times this year, he's just hit a weak grounder to third or short. But the guy who he's been lately and the approach he's had lately and the way he's elevated the ball lately, you knew he wasn't going to strike out. You knew he wasn't going to get himself out. And what did he do? He hits a line drive right up the middle. They win the game. The reason why LeMahieu was so great for the Yankees in the playoffs, before he had to suffer season-ending injuries in 21, 22, and they didn't even make the playoffs in 23, and so he wasn't in the playoffs those 2 years, is because he's the same guy in the playoffs. Like, he doesn't change his approach. He doesn't try to do too much. His OPS is the exact same in the regular season for his career as it is in the playoffs. Like, he's the same exact guy. And that's what makes him great there. If he can just be, he doesn't even need to be his old self. Like, just be 70% of that, and that unseats Gleyber, and it puts LeMahieu and another trusty bat in the lineup. You've said it a million times here already. Like, he is key. Like, if he can just keep going, like, he makes the lineup so much better, the infield so much better. This is what I'm pretty much rooting for the most at this point is for him to continue, because they're going to the playoffs. They're going to beat the crap out of these bad teams in August. What I really care about right now is DJ LeMahieu continuing to progress and being great again.
Yeah, and then just to reiterate on the other point, if he's able to be that guy and they're able to put him in that leadoff spot again, now you're adding a different dimension to the entire lineup, because now Volpe and Jazz in that 6, 7, 8 spot, 9 spot, wherever they are, they can be more aggressive. The Yankees can be more aggressive on the base path, put more pressure on pitchers, and come playoff time, if you're not able to to consistently get hits and home runs aren't coming off, if you're able to at least put some pressure on with getting guys on. There was a stat that I brought up last episode with Jazz. He said, I think, before he came to the Yankees, 51% ground balls in the season, and he has not grounded into a double play. Like, that guy is fast. There's a weapon there that can be used. And if you have him and Volpe towards the end, like we saw yesterday, a double steal to get both guys and runners into scoring position, like that type of shit just gets me so excited, because we haven't seen that dynamic, that athleticism on the Yankees in such a long time. And when you have it at the bottom of your lineup and you're able to turn it over to the big boys, then it gives you another dynamic to hit.
You're still waiting for Tyler Wade to be part of that equation there for the double steals.
Hey, the last guy on the bench needs to have wheels, unless you have in those teams, because there were no wheels on the team. You needed someone to actually be able to come in and do something. If you actually have guys in the starting lineup that have the ability to do that, then you don't need that last guy on the bench to be that speed guy who could come in with a glove. You need him to be a different type of player. Maybe he's a big bat that can give you a pinch hit home run, because at the end of the day, if you have that luxury, that's a much better option. Because to me, you have dynamic, running ability in the lineup already built in, and you don't have to have that on the bench.
Whenever I see Wade racing home in a Padres game these days, I think of you and just what could have been for him.
He loves being in San Diego. He absolutely loves it. All right. Before we get out of here, I want to hit on some news and notes, and we'll give a little preview of what's coming up with the Angels tomorrow night. We're recording this Monday morning. So look, there's a lot of pitchers in AAA that could or could not come and fill out the rest of this bullpen. There's also some guys that I think have, unfortunately given guys like Gleyber a little bit longer of a leash in the major leagues. John Birdie is one of them. I think when I saw John Birdie as an acquisition right before the season started, I thought it was I applauded Cashman, because that type of guy, what he was doing was exactly the type of player that I thought we needed. Is another guy that could put bat to ball. It's a guy that could play all over the place. It's a guy that could steal a bag. Like, give me that as a utility guy. Give me that guy as a utility guy. And if John Birdie's able to come back, right now he's running at 80%. Who knows what the hell he comes back as? But I think it does give them another flexible option. And again, like, if Gleyber does go back to the player that I think a lot of people think he's going to be, it at least gives you now another player, another thing to think about as an option in the infield for the Yankees. Rizzo is swinging the bat. Who knows? He's still got a ways to go. Like you said, I don't know if he's going to be back for this season. I assume at this point they're just seeing if he can come back probably the last few weeks in September to see how he can hit, and then they'll make a decision based on that. Ben Rice can have a big play in that decision. If Ben Rice is playing well, then there's really no reason for it. But yeah, those two guys, thoughts on them, and then we'll hit on some of the pitchers.
Yeah, Birdie is a great player to have on this bench. Before Jazz, which they traded for Jazz, and they realized he could play third, everyone was kind of waiting for Birdie to come back to play third. Now he doesn't really fit into the equation. So he is a great person to have off the bench. Like, he can put the ball in play at the plate. He can, run the bases. He's not going to screw up a game for you in the infield like Gleyber would. So he could be a valuable piece. Rizzo, at this point, it's like, I don't expect anything from him. Like, if you want to come back and sit in the dugout and have fun watching the rest of the season, the playoffs, like, all for it. But I don't know how anyone could trust him to come back and take his spot back. The scary thing is, if Rizzo never got hurt and he just kept having a 650 OPS, he would still be starting. Like, they would still have Ben Rice in the minors for all the good that Rice has done. We wouldn't even know who he is. We'd be like, oh, there's this guy in AA and AAA still crushing it, but Rizzo keeps playing every day. That's just the way the Yankees do things. So I don't want to see Rizzo back unless we're getting 850 OPS Rizzo back, and he hasn't been that guy in a long time. So he can just hang out and keep swinging that bat lightly for the next few months.
And then you're looking at the pitching staff. Like I said, there's the Scott Efrosses of the world are down in AAA. And again, like it's been a name that we've heard for a very long time. I don't even remember what he is. I don't know what he looks like. If he can come back and be a solid contributor, then fantastic. He's been in AAA now. Nick Birdie was just reinstated from the IL and is in AAA. Is another guy that can get the strikeout. He's a hard thrower, but really unseasoned. We don't really know what he can be. So we'll see what that is. Ian Hamilton is also starting to throw high intensity bullpen, so he's got some more opportunities. Ian Hamilton's an interesting cog, I think, because we've seen him be very good. We've also seen him be very bad, but it's also partly, could be to injury and the reason why he was kind of sat down. But if he's healthy and he's right and he's got his pitch mix going, he could be a valuable piece in the Yankees bullpen. So I do have some hope for him. And then Clark Schmidt's the last guy that I'm looking at with, just keeping my eye on him. He's throwing his first live bullpen on Tuesday. And from what Schmidt says, he expects to be fully built up by the end of the season. That's a long ways away. It's not that long, but from what I expected him to be back, that's a long ways away if we're talking about the end of the season. But I think he's interesting because he does put pressure on that Stroman spot, like you're talking about. But also Clark Schmidt could be an option out of the bullpen, which I think is going to be what we're going to see. I could see him as that guy who comes in and solidifies the bullpen a little bit more if he's back to the form, because he had a really good start.
Yeah, Schmidt is easily the number one pitcher who has the most importance of anyone that's hurt and trying to come back, for how good he was earlier in the season. The fact that he bumps Stroman out of the equation completely, and Nestor's barely hanging on to the equation as it is. Schmidt can go in the bullpen, like you said. 2022, he came out in a bullpen in the ALDS against Cleveland, lost that game. Boone went to him, first guy in game one of the ALCS for reasons we'll never know. So Boone does like him as an option out of the bullpen, even though he's not that great out of the bullpen, but he can be a great starter and he can be someone they need, because we're all assuming that the rotation they have now is going to stay healthy, which it's the Yankees. So if we think that everyone's going to stay healthy for the next 2 months, I think we're all idiots. So getting Schmidt back is key. Now with Birdie and Hamilton, I don't trust either of those guys. I mean, Nick Birdie's 31. He's been in the majors over the last 6 years with 3 different teams. He's thrown 25 innings in his career. Like, this is a guy who all he does is get hurt. He's had, multiple Tommy Johns. He has other issues that he's had with the Yankees. This year, he's already been on the IL for the majority of the season. And yeah, when he pitches, he has insane stuff in the sense that he can get strikeouts, but he has no idea where the ball's going. His walk to strikeout ratio for his career is almost 1-to-1. I mean, in this season alone, I think he's thrown 9 innings. He has 12 Ks and 9 walks. This is not a guy you want pitching for you in big games down the stretch for the division or in big games in October. And the same thing goes for Hamilton. Boone loves Hamilton, and he loves for nothing more than to put him in the highest of leverage positions in the 7th and 8th innings. He's a big problem, Hamilton, because when he's off, and Boone can't pull him from the game fast enough. So Birdie and Hamilton, if they come back and they throw innings here in August and September, that's fine, but I don't want to see them in October. And I think we're getting to the point now where it doesn't really matter who comes back, because you've got Holmes, you've got Weaver, you've got Leiter, you've got Cadley, De Los Santos. Those are probably the only guys that will ever get the ball in October at this point, because you're either going to have the starter go, you're going to have one of those 5 go, or you're going to use some of the starters that are in the rotation as relievers. So Birdie, Hamilton, Tonkin, your guy Tonkin, I don't think any of these guys are throwing pitches in October. If they do, things have probably, either the Yankees are blowing someone out or they're getting blown out. I think that's the only way.
Yeah, look, I just want to see more competition, I think, in the bullpen to figure out who can rise to the top. That's really what I want to see. I want to see Canley's walking too many guys.
Yeah, I don't trust
put them
Canley
in a bad
either. I mean, I haven't trusted him since Game 7 years ago. So that'll never change. But he's a Boone guy. Like, he's in the inner circle of Boone's trust. So he's going to get the ball in big spots as long as he's on the roster and he's healthy. Canley's probably first guy out of the bullpen in a close game in the postseason.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss to not talk about Leiter Jr. In this show too, because we saw that splitter and how effective it can be last night when he comes in and gets that swing and miss. That's what they were going for. De Los Santos, I'm reserving judgment. I need to see more of him. But Leiter does. First of all, he looks like he's got the moxie for the big moments, which I love. He does feel like that guy who doesn't shy away from the big situation. And he's got that splitter that has, big swing and miss. He's got the ability to strike guys out. So he is an important piece. And look, so far so good with what the acquisitions have done with Brian Cashman acquisitions with Jazz, Leiter, De Los Santos. Like they're effective. They've been doing well. It's not been a very large sample size, but I think so far so good. I think now Leiter just needs to they need to continue to lean in on the trust factor, like bringing Clay Holmes in on Saturday with the bases loaded with one out to go when you just need a strikeout, which exactly why Mark Leiter Jr. was brought into this team. Like I would rather you just stay with that guy and see if he can't get that strikeout in an 8-3 game. But yeah, I think so far so good with that. I just want to see more competition to see who can be, part of that pecking order and compete to actually, be able to build some trust with not just Boone, but Brad Ausmus too, because I do think he's pulling some strings behind Aaron Boone and show some trust, show some good stuff at the end of the year. Like that's what I need. I want more competition in that bullpen.
Yeah, Leiter he's probably the guy I trust most in the bullpen because we've had him the least amount of time, and he hasn't screwed up. I think the only run he gave up was one ball that Gleyber screwed up to transfer and would have ended the inning. So yeah, he's the guy who in October, when Boone tries to steal outs with the starter, and all of a sudden it's second and third with one out, that's the guy you want to be seeing come in. You want to see him come in and get the strikeouts to keep them off the board. Like he's the most important piece, which there's a lot of people who want him to be the closer, where then you're just like he's in the ninth no matter what part of the order's up. I'd rather have him being able to come in at any moment. I don't think
Fire
there's
extinguisher
closer as there is. But one guy we also didn't talk about is Jake Cousins, who I forgot to mention. He's been great. Like I trust Jake Cousins and Mark Leiter more than anyone else in the bullpen. So De Los Santos, he's been good already, but his numbers suggest that we probably shouldn't trust him over the long haul. So you put Cousins in there with Leiter, Holmes, Weaver, Canely. Those are your five that, as long as they're healthy, they're probably the only relievers that are going to get the ball in the postseason, barring some crazy score like 10-1 or something.
Yeah, I was talking to Rich Kaufman at the game as well on Saturday. First of all, Rodon had a good start. He gave up that home run early and then buckled down. So that was positive to see another, a consecutive start from him where he's come out there and actually not been the terrible Carlos Rodon. But Cousins gave up, allowed both runners to come in right after I said, like, oh yeah, I got trusted Cousins as well. You and I were talking about him. Like he's got some, a good amount of variety in his pitch mix, and he does get that swing and miss. So I think he's been a shining light in a bullpen that doesn't have a lot of shining lights. And then for, when we're looking at some of these other guys, like I think you're right. Not having that ninth inning guy solidified and being able to go to a fire extinguisher when needed, I think is the most important piece. Because if the game is in hand, is at a pivotal point in the seventh inning with the heart of the lineup coming in, like I want the fire extinguisher. I want my best guy to come in so that they can put that fire out, give the Yankees an opportunity to, whether it's keep a lead, stay in the game, whatever that is, like that's what I want. I want them to be able to have the flexibility to do that. And, for the most part, we've seen Holmes, come in the ninth inning as the closer, and they've given a ton of confidence to him as far as the way that they're talking about him. But he's also come in some weird situations where it doesn't necessarily play to what his strengths are.
Right. And the closer role as a whole has always been kind of dumb. I mean, when you think about it, how many saves did Mariano get where he faced the 7, 8, 9 hitters, but he should have been in the inning before? And how many games did the Yankees blow over the years where he didn't face the 3, 4, 5 hitters because it was the 8th inning, but then he came in the 9th and, the game was, or the 8th, the setup guy blew the game because Mariano should have been in against the heart of the order and he wasn't. The closer role should just end. It should just go away and you should pitch to the situation. And the first time I think anyone ever really had the balls to do it was in the 2016 postseason when Terry Francona started bringing Andrew Miller in, like in the 5th inning of games because like the game could have been won or lost in that moment and he knew it, and he would bring in his best reliever to, like you said, put out the fire. And that kind of changed the way people did things. And the next year, Girardi went to Chad Green in the first inning of that wild card game and then started to do stuff like that throughout that 17 postseason. But Boone, has never really shied away from that. Like Holmes is the guy in the ninth. He's going to be the guy in the ninth in October, no matter what part of the order is up in the eighth or seventh. Even though he may be a better matchup then. So we're kind of stuck with the way that they operate.
As you said, Yankees need to clean up with the month that's in front of them. They got some bad teams on the schedule. First one are the Angels that are coming in and playing Tuesday night. 49-63 minus 96 run differential. They did just take 2 of 3 from the Mets, so maybe they got their little winning out of their bones. But the matchups we have Tuesday is Luis Gil versus Davis Daniels, a 4.91 ERA. Cortez versus Carson Fulmer, and then Thursday is Stroman versus Tyler Anderson. I think that start for Thursday is what I'm circling. You expect Cortez on Wednesday to be good at home against a team that's just not very good offensively, but Stroman to come in, he needs to shut down this Angels lineup. He needs to be able to come in and pitch well against this team, and hopefully, iron out some mechanic stuff, at least build some momentum for himself on the confidence side. But I think Luis Gil is going to have a field day on Tuesday, and the Yankees are going to score a ton of runs.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team where you beat the crap out of this team because they're coming to Yankee Stadium after an off day. The bullpen's rested. The lineup's the best it's been all season. This is a team that has no one. They have no one. They're just counting down the days until game 162 when they can all end this miserable season and go home. Stroman, if you can't shut down this Angels team, like, it's only going to get harder from here. So, this is a series that they should easily win. And I know, like you mentioned, they took 2 out of 3 from the Mets. The Mets suck. Like, the Mets are 5 games over. 4 of those games are from beating up on the collapsing, injured Yankees. So let's be real. But the Angels, they're a horrible, miserable team. And outside of the Yankees still have to face them, the Rockies, and the White Sox this month. So you're going to see a lot of bad baseball teams this month. This is where the Yankees have the opportunity to go create some separation between them and the Orioles. And had they just gotten league average play since the middle of June from Verdugo and Gleyber and LeMahieu and all these guys, the Yankees would probably have a 6-game lead already in the division. They're lucky they are where they are after all those losses. This is the time where they can pad that win column for the next 3 weeks because it's never going to get easier than it is right now in the schedule.
Neil, tell everybody where they can find you. I know you're active on Twitter, and tell them about the podcast.
Yeah, KeefeToTheCity.com, Yankees Thoughts blog after every game, podcast bi-weekly-ish, depending on the rest of life and being a dad and things like that. But yeah, KeefeToTheCity.com after every game, Yankees Thoughts, and always pleasure to come on and talk with you.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to everybody after the Angel series, probably Friday morning record, and then Andrew should be back the following week. But appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.